base has dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Thursday. It is some time for some Thursday thoughts here on the show. Champions League, Robo Offside. We got all kinds of weird things to get into today. Flying studs up tackles that don't see red cards in Costa Rica. We'll get into that. Lots of stuff. John is not in his usual location. He is on the road before joining me in Dalton tonight at Dalton Brewing Company. If you can join us in Dalton, we'd love to see you. We'll be talking to Karim Dazer from the North Georgia Soccer Academy as well. 6 o'clock showtime. You can get there starting at 5. There'll be some specials for you in that first hour. If you can't join us, that's cool too. You can watch on Twitch and be part of this show there. Take pictures of what you are sipping on this evening. You get double the points if it is a Dalton Brewing beverage. If it is not, you still get a point, and you get into a drawing for a $50 gift card. So that is tonight, 6 o'clock, Dalton Brewing in downtown Dalton. Looking forward to seeing some folks and getting out on the road and talking soccer with you then. Up until then, we got a couple hours to talk soccer with you this morning. John, where are you exactly?
Exceedingly generic hotel room in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
Trying to wrap up another project on the college football side of things, and came to Tuscaloosa yesterday and shot some city B-roll. So it was an incredibly exciting assignment, but it had to be done. So we're here in downtown Birmingham getting 2 rear tires put on the car. And
do you want to explain that part? Because I thought it was funny how when you said you were getting 2 rear tires put on the car, and I said, what happened? You blamed it on a curb.
Well, I blame it on my lack of driving acumen with the big dog.
You tried to blame it on the curb first, and then there was some questioning of curbs don't normally jump out and grab tires.
No, they don't. As I left Atlanta yesterday, I'm still getting used to driving a car the size of the Nissan Murano.
How much bigger is it than what you had?
It's wider than the Toyota Camry. I mean, it's wider and it's taller. So, it's...
taller doesn't affect curbs, John.
No, but it is wider. And so I'm still trying to get used to, how I'm supposed to hit the gas pedal and things like that. And so
I'm somewhat scared. You're getting used to how to hit the gas pedal? Are you sure you need to drive from Birmingham to Dalton today?
Well, it's freeway, so all I have to do is keep my foot down at a steady rate. But no, I'm making a left-hand turn out of Decatur.
Yeah,
and I apparently made the left-hand turn a little too soon, so the rear right-hand tire ended up scrubbing a curb. And I got to Tuscaloosa, and you see this inch-long gash that is in the back of the tire itself. And so,
did your tire go flat?
No, it did not.
Well, that's good.
That's why I've made it here, made it in one piece. Wanted to see how the car would respond overnight with not being driven. The tire still looks like it's in decent shape, but the last thing I need, since I'm going to be at Dalton Brewing tonight and then driving to Atlanta after that, is in, say, Trenton, having to pull off to the side of the road because the tire decides to die. And so it's currently at a dealership and it's going to get looked at, and I might get a phone call during the show asking, now, what is it you want done again? So that's where we are. But yeah, I've still yet to figure out how to attack left-hand turns with new cars. So that's the bottom line.
How sharp are the curbs in Decatur?
That's that old school rock and gravel, to where if you really make that turn for a long period of time, it's going to grind. And so it did ground for a good inch. It didn't get in the tire itself. So that's where we are. Yes, it's my fault. I get it.
Were you wearing your driving slippers?
Yes, I actually was, and it's the new pair of driving slippers, and they have rubbed against my Achilles and started to make it bleed, so that's not a good thing.
Good grief, John, you're a mess today.
What kind of morning did I just...
I don't know, Jared. His driving slippers are tearing the skin on his Achilles, on his heel, and he's hitting curbs, and... I don't know, Jared. Help this man.
The part I understand, because I did something worse than that when I was in high school. Truck I drove
in high school.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, when he was learning
Not
how
like
to drive.
yesterday, but high school.
No, when he was learning how to
Turn
drive.
lane.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I knew how to drive at that point. I'd already been in a wreck, so this was
Good.
another gold
time.
star on my record. I dropped into a turn lane, and there was rebar sticking out of a sewer grate, and I ended up shredding the right side tires and just destroying the wheels on both of my right side by running over like rebar that was sticking out of a grate like Bugs Bunny had left it.
Jarrett, I don't know what is going on this morning. I'm going to try to find some semblance of something normal. I'm first, though.
You're going to fail.
I will, but I'm going to hope that the Materva helps me, because this was a gift from Alex Pacine at our last live show. He told me it is best over ice, so we are going to prepare that. And this is what I will be sipping on during the show, at least. So hopefully it will help. Jarrett, what did you think about PSG shocking everybody by going into Munich and slapping Bayern upside the head?
I think that's the reason I would not want to play PSG if I was cheering or playing for another team. Because of the off chance that if they're up for the game and if Neymar and Mbappe are up for the game, they can literally beat anybody on the planet. The thing is, if you catch them on an off day, like, you can easily convince me they're going to go to Paris and get beat 3-0 because Neymar's not in the mood or something, or they haven't clicked and they're just not up for it that day. It's a maddeningly frustrating team to watch because there's the talent is like in the stratosphere with them. They just kind of have to be up for it, and when they are, they can go into Munich and drop 3 goals because Kylian Mbappe is just a stupid, absurd talent who I guess got tired of everyone talking about Erling Haaland and wanted everyone to remember that he is there. So he just, whipped a couple past one of the best modern keepers, just for giggles. A light workout for him, but I think Leg 2 could be a lot of fun. But PSG has to show up for it again. We'll see.
Can we also give some praise to our favorite Costa Rican goalkeeper, Keylor Navas, because he is leading.
This is the Pro Keylor Navas podcast.
It is a Pro Keylor Navas podcast and is a Pro Gareth Bale podcast. Keylor Navas is leading the Champions League in prevented goals. So, according to the XG of goals that he should have had scored against him, it should have been 8.5.
Wow.
He's given up 4. That's a 4.5 difference. Is that all on Keylor? No, he does have players playing in front of him. But that's pretty good. Keylor Navas has done an amazing job. He always gets overlooked, to the point that there was a debate recently that Memo Ochoa was not just the best goalkeeper currently in CONCACAF, but the best ever in CONCACAF. And whoever started that debate is wrong on both sides.
No doubt.
Keylor Navas needs respect.
Keylor Navas is still alive, y'all, and he's still making saves. I mean, go back to when PSG was playing Barcelona a couple of weeks ago in a previous round of Champions League, and PSG looked like they wanted to have another meltdown in that second leg. Barcelona could have had like 3 or 4 first-half goals. Yes, we see it. They could have.
No, I was asked what it was. I was asked on the Twitch pitch what it was, Jarrett. This is an interactive show, sir, and it is amazing, is what I'm going to tell you right now.
Over ice, it is amazing.
It is amazing.
By all accounts, Barcelona could have had 3 or 4 first-half goals against PSG in that game, and that would have flipped that tie on its head. And Keylor Navas made a number of huge saves. He's been great. He continues to be great. I don't know what he has to do to get recognition, but I mean, I will help him find out whatever he has to do. And it's no disrespect, by the way, to Memo Ochoa. He's great, but
he's done it for 18
Keylor Navas
years.
is just, God, it feels like it's been longer.
So let me ask this then. We saw PSG have a game that we've seen them have from time to time where they're incredible and they look unbeatable, and then they lose in league play. Can Bayern come back and win this thing?
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
That's where my head is too. Like, I don't know what happens in the second leg. I think it'll be fun. I think there'll be a lot of goals in it. You won't have Robert Lewandowski, it looks like, and that makes it more difficult for Bayern. But even with that, they should have won yesterday. Yeah. They were the better team.
Like 4.5 XG, I think. I mean, take that for what it is. But.
Yeah, something ridiculous. I mean, like, they were the better team. They created the better chances. They had the better of the overall play. They got punished on some brilliance from Neymar, some brilliance from Mbappe, but they were the better team, even without Lewandowski. But can you get what you need now going to Paris? If anybody can, it's Bayern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to hear what people who are watching have to say about that. Put it in the chat. Let us know what is your thoughts on this. Is Bayern out? Can PSG advance? What do you think happens in leg number 2? That's what I want to hear.
I think it turns into, if it wasn't must-see viewing before, it turns into must-see viewing now because of how crazy leg 1 is, or leg 1 was, and the anticipation of just how absolute bananas leg 2 could be. So that'll be where I will be locked when this one comes around.
Burned gives us the XG from yesterday. 3.6 from Burns reporting for Bayern, 1.8 for PSG. I think I actually saw 1/4 for Bayern. It was ridiculous. Jason Nix asks, will either Lewandowski or Gnabry be back next week? Lewandowski is not expected to be. Gnabry, I think it's just going to depend on what happens with his testing. Because the problem with Serge was not just that he tested positive, but he was symptomatic before he tested positive. Because he was originally going to miss the game due to a sore throat, is what they had said. Then he tested positive, or at least that came out later in the day. So I don't know if he'll be back. I would assume neither one are back for the second leg. So Jason Nix, there is your information for your answer. We'll be expecting that. Wow Chara says, I think PSG is just too dangerous on the break. And Jarrett, this is the thing that the way Bayern plays, and I know some people get scared and they feel like they need to maybe pet their dog next to them or really like worry about everything when they see a team play in the way that Bayern does. But PSG is the exact team why you fear it, because they can kill you on the break with Mbappe and Neymar.
Yeah, and it's those moments of individual brilliance that are just wild to watch. And I don't mean it in a bad way at all. I mean, it's like you can have a game like that where PSG just decides, hey, we're just going to have a couple of breaks. We're going to try and weather the storm, and then we've got a couple of world-class guys that when they're on can just make the difference. And it's infuriating to play against, I'm sure.
PSG is a team that, for me, drives me absolutely crazy, and I don't know how fans – I mean, if you're a PSG fan, you sit there and you say, well, why can't they be like this all the time? And then you'll have moments like they do in league play. And so I imagine it's incredibly infuriating for supporters of PSG knowing that you have the talent that you have, but then something happens and – then you trip over a rock or you tie your shoelaces together and you have those moments. But yesterday you got the PSG that everyone wants to see, and then all of a sudden, there are those of us who aren't PSG supporters who see what happens in league play, see what happens in other places, and you go, okay, yeah, that's the other PSG. You just wonder which one's going to show up on a daily basis at times.
But I mean, look, that being said, John, PSG had 6 shots.
Mm-hmm.
37% of the ball.
Yeah.
Bayern had 31 shots.
Yeah.
12 on target. So 10 saves for Keylor Navas. 63% of the ball. I mean, everything is statistically Bayern, as Burns said, played PSG off the pitch. They didn't get the goals to show for it. They gave up an early one, which is where things changed. But I think Bayern showed you their character by you give up a 3rd-minute goal, so what? You give up a 28th-minute goal, you're down 2-0, so what? You go get one before the end of the half, it's 2-1. Mm-hmm. You keep coming back. That last goal for Bayern from Mueller, that got it to 2-2. I know Mbappe had a third one. To be at 3-2 going in, if it had been 2-0, if it had been 3-1 kind of situation, maybe I'm having a little bit different conversation about Bayern. I know PSG's got 3 away goals. Bayern's a team that I don't really care when it comes to that. If they win 2-0, which I think they're absolutely capable of doing, or 3-1, I mean, these are the things that can put them through. I still think Bayern is the favorite to go through, even with this result, because of the quality of their play.
Yeah.
Second legs next week in UEFA Champions League and in CONCACAF Champions League, and we'll get to that here in a minute. It's reversed in Europe. So the teams that played yesterday will play on Tuesday, and then the teams that played Tuesday will play on Wednesday. So PSG Bayern next Tuesday from Paris. Dawn thinks PSG beats Bayern. Is it just as simple, Jarrett, to say that if PSG is going to win this, it is the exact same formula as we saw yesterday, where it is on the counter, it is where you are getting kind of dominated by the opposition, but you just score goals on the break?
I think that's a dangerous life to lead, though. If you are, if you're PSG, that's a dangerous life to try and sit there and play that again. Like, cool, it worked for you yesterday to an extent. You still gave up 2 goals, but you're up 3-2 on the road. Anybody would give their right leg for that result in Munich. But you know that Bayern Munich is going to be coming for you, and it gets into this conversation of, do you change what you are and how you play for the situation that much? Because if Bayern Munich rolls out there and drops 2 goals on you inside of like 25 minutes, can you turn the engine on if you're PSG? Can you get everybody up for it and get things moving in the direction they need to get moving in to turn it into a barn burner?
What do you think, John?
I stare at Bayern and I know how dangerous they are, and I don't know if you can run this same recipe twice and have those chances and convert those chances with the same rate that you did yesterday. I mean, I'll give you juice boxes real quick, and obviously we know this is incredibly early for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But PSG's at a plus 210, Bayern's at a plus 118 in the matchup coming up next week. And so a lot of folks who are paying attention to juice boxes think that Bayern can do their business the way that they did yesterday, hit their chances, get in the back of the net, and get the win. So, I mean, I just think that if you're PSG, can you do this for the second time in a row and get the same result? That for me is my biggest question in all of this, knowing that Bayern will come after you. If Bayern has the ball, they're going to have the incredible number of chances again like they had yesterday. And then you're relying on Keylor Navas, which is a great person to rely on in this situation. But I think it's a dangerous game, like Jarrett said.
Johannes, resident Bayern fan, says it all falls on Leroy Sané. Needs to step up, show his worth, or he could be on the outs pretty quick at Bayern. 31 shots yesterday. Leroy Sané played 90 minutes. He had 2. That doesn't feel like it makes a whole lot of sense. You do need a much bigger performance from him. You look across like the ratings from somebody like SofaScore, and Choupo-Moting, who is there for Lewandowski. He's not Lewandowski. 7.4, Mueller 7.6, Coman 7.6. Kimmich was one of the best players over the last week in his performance against PSG with a 9. Sané 6.3, below average from Leroy Sané, and that's the glaring issue here for Bayern in this performance yesterday, is you didn't get really much of anything out of Leroy Sané. That has to change. I'm with Jared on this in that it's a dangerous game to play if you're PSG, but I think it's the only game you can play because you're not going to control the play against Bayern. You're just not. Marquinhos left injured. That's a big miss. You're not going to control the game. You're not built to do that right now. I do think it's something that if Pochettino sticks around for an extended period of time, he will want to change about PSG, that they can play where they control games against top teams. And look, this is the challenge of playing in Ligue 1 because they can show up and control games against some teams in Ligue 1. They don't have to really do much to build the way they play. But then they've got to be able to do it against the Bayerns and the Chelseas and the top teams. And I'm not convinced they can right now. But when you have Neymar, you have Mbappe, you can play on the break, and you can be incredibly good at it. I don't trust PSG to put two quality performances like this back to back.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it for me, is I just don't trust it. So I'm still Bayern next week, even with the things we've seen here. Burns says Goretzka is very important for them. Missing him unsettles the midfield. He came off injured. That's another big one for sure here. Jason Nix feels like Bayern will pull it out. Only takes one or two breakdowns, though, for PSG to have those opportunities to win it. And Bayern have been pretty generous, according to Jason. I would agree with that. Wow, Chara, I don't know if PSG can play a possession game at home. Go ahead, Jared.
I don't even know if it takes a complete breakdown if you've got a guy like Mbappe. I think it could just take something stupid happening where you don't even have necessarily a breakdown, but let's say a set piece gets deflected the wrong way. Hello, Atlanta-Miami game. Let's say a set piece takes a stupid deflection and it lands at Mbappe's feet, and all he has to do is drag race somebody, which, spoiler alert, he's going to win. And I don't even think it needs to be a breakdown. It's just you're in a position now where chaos reigns potentially if you're Bayern Munich. And, of course, you're going to want to not have those breakdowns. But PSG has that level of individual talent that I don't think you even need to have a breakdown, that if they're on, they're going to get at least one or two chances.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. And maybe I'm being like too bearish about Bayern Munich's defensive situation here. I think their capabilities are certainly there, but I think PSG is just what they might lack in team play in terms of controlling a game. God knows they may more than make up for it in guys who can individually take things over if they're in the mood and Jupiter is lined up right with the sun or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what's so weird about this one is I think Bayern's the better team. I think Bayern should win. They should control it. But if things fall for PSG, they can beat you. I just don't believe they can do it consistently. It actually works out good for them that Neymar doesn't play in the league game this weekend because he's suspended. He got a couple games suspension for his red card in league play, so he'll be fully rested. But still, it's just, I don't know. I'm just not thinking PSG can do it back to back. I think Bayern will find a way in the second leg. The other game went about like we expected in UEFA Champions League yesterday. Chelsea 2-0 win. Pretty comfortable. I want to know how the Chelsea fans are feeling at this point. I said it a while ago. I feel like Chelsea can win the Champions League. I still do. This is a really quality team that bounced back from and it's not even a bad performance, a strange game against West Brom on the weekend where you had the first half red. You still had more of the chances. You still had more of the play. You still were the better team in terms of quality, but West Brom hits you on the break against 10. You showed some frailties in that. The biggest one is don't get a first half red card. Kind of shocking, but it happens for all teams. You don't want to do that. But they go into Porto, and they have 61% of the ball. Porto does have twice as many shots, but you convert on 2 of your 3 shots on target. You walk out of there with a 2-0 lead. You're comfortable. Both games are going to be in the same place, so, I mean, like, that's kind of weird with this. The second leg will be Chelsea's home leg, but you've got 2 away goals. I think Chelsea walks through leg 2, and they're into the semis.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you and to your point, you looked at the bracket. I know that when we were looking at who could, win Champions League, and I was looking at Manchester City, and you looked at the bracket, and you saw what Chelsea's road could be. And when you take care of business, I know a lot of folks are looking at Chelsea after the West Brom match. How would you respond? Do you just sit there and put that game in file 13? Do you focus on what's going on in front of you and take care of business against Porto? They did that. Thomas Tuchel, after the match, was praising Mason Mount for his performance, praised the bench. Christian Pulisic was a part of that performance as well. So you got what you were looking for. You shook off what happened in league play last weekend with all of the variables and variants that were there, took care of business, and now it's yours for the taking to get into the semifinals.
Yeah, 100%. Any concerns about Chelsea, Jarrett?
No.
I would agree with that. Tommy Tuchel is.
I don't know. Like what you You get Porto take shots. You were effective with yours. Now you have them under your thumb. I think Thomas Tuchel knows exactly what to do in this situation. I have no questions for Chelsea, and I'm just sitting here helplessly watching the tide or watching Chelsea pushing the tide back out to sea towards Champions League semifinals.
Everybody had questions after West Brom beat Chelsea. Oh, look! They got problems.
I mean, it was a bad look, even if you were down a man, to give up that many goals to a West Brom team that is so big Sammed the way it is. But
no.
Everybody has their bad days.
I disagree with like something you said. I disagree with it's a bad look. It's a bad look on the surface. If you don't actually look at what's going on in the game, yeah, it's a bad look. But if you watched how that game played out, even with 10, Chelsea was the better team. Like it gets into that whole conversation of, does the scoreline define how well a team plays, or are you looking for something a little bit deeper? I think you're always looking for something deeper. The scoreline will define success, and the scoreline will define winning things, and the scoreline will define ultimately job security. But what you can hang your hat on is how well you are playing. And Chelsea has been in control, even with that game, of pretty much every game they've played under Thomas Tuchel. And that's going to serve them very well. Are there going to be times where they're the better team and lose? Absolutely. Absolutely, because it happens to every team. Ask Bayern yesterday. But I'm not even worried about the look of it for real. Like, yes, you're going to get people yelling and screaming and Big Sam masterclass and all that kind of nonsense. You're going to get that stuff, and you're going to get people saying, "Oh, see." No, but also you're going to get the people who were ready to trash Thomas Tuchel day one, and now it's like, oh yeah, we've had all this pent up energy. Like, yeah, now we can say, look, Thomas Tuchel's not very good. No, Thomas Tuchel's fine. He's doing a very good job at Chelsea. He's doing a far better job than Frank Lampard did, and it's not hating on Frank. It's the same team, and they're a whole lot better than they were before. Frank will be fine down the road when he can get experience. This was not the job for him when they could actually spend money. When it was, we can't spend money, we got to develop kids from within, good job for Frank because the expectations are low. That changed. He wasn't ready. Thomas Tuchel comes in, and as Burns said, when you go back and look at PSG and you compare PSG now to PSG under Tuchel, they played better soccer under Tuchel. Chelsea, they're playing better under Tuchel. And I could care less about one blip result where you had a first half red card. The way they're playing is much better.
Yeah, they are really humming right now, Jarrett. And I mean, it was their first 13 unbeaten under Tuchel to get things started. So I mean, it's same guys, and Tuchel's really doing well right now with what we're seeing at Chelsea, Jarrett.
He is, and I mean, if given what he's done with that team, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's why everyone in England was thinking about, like, if we're going to fire our manager, we need to do it now so we can get in on this Thomas Tuchel sweepstakes. And Chelsea's the one that pulled the trigger, rightfully so. Frank Lampard, like, it wasn't working. But you pulled the trigger on it, and you brought in Thomas Tuchel, and you look and you're like, oh, maybe that's why other clubs might have thought about doing the same. Whether or not they needed to, kind of, irrelevant at that point. Like, Mikel Arteta seems like he knows what he's doing at Arsenal, but Arsenal is never going to be – I don't think Arsenal is ever going to be happy.
No.
I don't think they're actually capable of it anymore.
They're broken emotionally? Is that what you're saying, Jared? They're broken emotionally.
I think they are.
That's not good.
No, but given some of the things that have happened to them in the past, I can kind of understand that. It's kind of like Liverpool up until they won the league. I think they were always kind of waiting for the anvil to drop. But other clubs looking at Thomas Tuchel thinking, that's a guy we can bring in. Well, Chelsea did, and you see why. I mean, it works. He's done very well, and he has an inside track to Champions League semifinal, and he's going to probably like his draw in the semifinal to potentially get to the final. Now, what he does in the league, who knows going forward? Because nobody's catching City. No matter how much I see, the snark about, the team with all the money, and all the talent won. What a surprise. Yeah, they weren't there at the beginning of the year. Y'all weren't talking about them then, but now that they have flipped the switch, sure, you can pull out the narrative mobile and push it down the road as much as you want to make yourself look good and make yourself feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Didn't Chelsea spend a whole lot of money in the offseason?
Yeah,
They
180.
Doesn't Liverpool generally have a lot of money to spend?
Because it's the easy and lazy narrative to, City spend all the money and they have Pep. Because they're good. He's good.
Right. If we want to compare
take away from the work they've done, they've been rolling folks.
No. If we want to compare City in terms of money and spending to Crystal Palace, sure. But when you're talking City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham, even to a degree, stop. That's an idiotic conversation, and that's where the whole plucky upstarts thing started with Liverpool. They spend plenty. Now, Barcelona gave them plenty to spend, but they spend plenty.
That's just good business by Liverpool. I'm not even mad at them for that.
Exactly. There's nothing to be mad at. It's just if you have money to spend, you spend it. If you spend more money, you're probably going to have a better team. These are just the rules of the sport. This is how it goes. Money talks. That's what it is. And there's not a big enough difference between the top. If you want to go big six, if you want to go 7, if you want to get to 8, whatever you want to do in England, there's not a big enough difference to say, City's going to beat everybody because of this. Look at what Chelsea spent this past season. That doesn't always guarantee it, but in general, yes, it separates you in buckets. It just does. Leicester's the only one who can really have this conversation with anybody. But anyway, that's not Champions League yet. Leicester should be back in it next year. I think Chelsea gets the 4th spot, and they get back in it for next year, although they got to sweat a little bit on it. Tuchel, I think, will get it done. Let's talk about CONCACAF Champions League, because money talks there too. And I think we're starting to see really that separation between MLS and Central America. Yep. This has been an ongoing battle where, you've had good players in Major League Soccer. Maybe you haven't had quite good enough. Maybe you haven't had the mentality. Maybe you haven't had the experience in these situations. But so far, in CONCA Champions, you've got a draw in Honduras at Marathon with Portland. You've got a win for Atlanta United in Costa Rica against the defending Costa Rican champs Alajuelense. You've got a win at Saprissa, a bad Saprissa team, but a win for Philadelphia in their first CONCACAF Champions League match, and a draw for Toronto at León, which is a big result. And tonight you get Columbus going to Real Esteli. It is an undefeated 4 games so far for MLS, and when you compare money and you compare values between these teams, there's a huge gap. Is that just the reality now for CONCACAF, Jared? I think we've heard all the managers talk about this all week long. When you are at Alajuelense, when you are at Saprissa, when you are at Olympia, if you're looking at Club America from the Liga MX side, if you're Marathon looking at Portland, you kind of have to go in and play over your heads to get a result against these teams now.
I think, you're to that point. And I think the money has been growing there, and that difference in money. But I think as much as anything, I think it's mentality as well. I think there is a level of mentality that MLS teams bring to Champions League now where they're not shook. And if they are, they're not showing it. Even when you would go into Central America, like when Atlanta lost to Herediano, it kind of was. I remember the articles afterward. A lot of them weren't making fun of Atlanta. It was just like, an MLS team in their first Champions League went and got smacked around in Central America. Hi, welcome to the club. That's just what we do. But that's not necessarily what we do anymore. And I think the expectation will change going forward. That when you get LAFC in there again, if you get an Orlando in there again, especially with Oscar Pereira in charge, you get some of these other clubs like a Minnesota, if and when, I think it's a win, not an if, they get into Champions League. Where this mentality isn't, it's your first run, well, get ready to get your neck wrung in Central America playing in a weird situation. No, the money was already there in the separation. I think the mentality is too now, where you go in there and you expect to win because you know you're better than them. You're not going to try and be disrespectful, but you know you can go in and you can win those games. And at the very least, you can go in like a Toronto, which, I mean, damn, like Toronto might be the most impressive result, all things considered,
Yeah.
right up there with Atlanta. But you just rolled into Leon and pulled a draw that I would not have predicted, considering everything Toronto's had going on beginning of the season. Guys may not be healthy. You're just coming into this season where the Liga MX is rolling on along. I think it's mentality as much as money and a sense of, a belief of here's where we are and the rest of them. Yeah, we're better than them. No offense. That's just where we are right now.
Yeah, there's elements that go into this. Martha said it's because you don't have fans in the stands. Yeah, I think what we're seeing here, though, is that the talent gap is huge. And yeah, you maybe see that because of the lack of fans in the stands. In most places, although Leon did have enough fans, I think, to make a difference.
Yeah.
The talent gap's huge. And the mentality gap is definitely changing for MLS teams to be able to go into these places and not play afraid like they used to. So that's changing. Maybe it gets a little different when fans are back in the stands, possibly. But I do think the mentality's changed enough. Also, what I learned last night, if you were hanging out in our Discord for subscribers, everybody hates Toronto far more than I thought they did. Like, hates. Like, absolutely, positively hates Toronto. I thought Atlanta fans hated Orlando. I thought Atlanta fans hated the Red Bulls, maybe a little bit of NYC. They despise Toronto. It's unbelievable. You guys know who you are.
Well, is this a carryover? Is this adding the history with Toronto and adding Chris Armas and Red Bull?
No, that has nothing to do with it. No. I think that has zero to do with it. They hate Toronto. Toronto's had success against Atlanta, and I get that. But wow, the hatred. And I'm not going to call y'all out. You guys know who you are, haters. Absolute haters. So then, because I wasn't hating, I'm branded a secret Toronto fan. Because I wasn't hating. Here's what I'll tell you about Toronto and Leon. Toronto's exceedingly lucky to get out of there with what they did. Incredibly lucky. But when you look at what they were missing, no Quentin Westberg, no Chris Mavinga, no Justin Morrow. I don't know how much of a role he's going to play this season, to be honest. No Osorio, which is huge. No Akinola, no De Leon. Josie Altidore had a leg injury. Are we surprised at this point? The effort was outstanding, and that's a credit to Chris Armas. The spirit in the group was outstanding. They were lucky. They were lucky to get out of there with a 1-1. And Jarrett saying that it is maybe the most impressive result next to Atlanta. Result, yes. Performance, no. Result, absolutely, because I don't think they really had a lot of business getting out of there at 1-1. But they did. And you take it, and you run out the door, and you get on the plane, and you get back to Kissimmee, Florida, where they're going to play Leon in the second leg, and you get ready for it because Leon's going to be ticked off. Saprisa's going to be ticked off, and they showed it at the end of the match. If you have not seen it, this is what it looked like. Late in the game, this is from Fox Soccer. You see it's looking like a 50-50 ball, and oh my goodness, he tried to break his leg.
Wow.
And then everybody wanted to brawl because he tried to break his leg, and he really had not feeling bad about it at all. I think he'd probably go kick him again if he thought he could get away with it. It was horrible. Mm-hmm. Horrible. And if you notice, the referee just came running in with a yellow card.
Yes.
If you see that and you think yellow first, that's the first thing you think of. You need to get your eyes checked. You might need to go back to remedial red card rule class. And you might need to think about what you're doing in these games because he tried to break Kai Wagner's leg in half. Studs up, both legs. Everybody's out on the field. Everybody wants to fight. You got Saprisa's staff there trying to deal with it.
That place looked like a Dillinger escape plan mosh pit. It was wild.
That's what it turned into. Full credit to Jacob Glesnes for coming in and just shoving Blanco out of the way. And then there were a whole bunch of yellow cards. The referees had a powwow to figure out who all was going to get a yellow card. But the fact that the tackle itself only got a yellow is insanity. One of the worst tackles I've seen in a long time, and one of the worst decisions I've seen by a referee.
That was, it's you only come out of there with a yellow. You need to really go back to school on that one. And I know that, man, you look at that and it's just the sheer. I mean, oh man, I'm having problems trying to get the words for just how egregious that was. And then you only come out of there with a yellow. It just blows your mind when something like that happens. I mean, I haven't seen helicopters that big.
What?
Since
what are you talking about? Helicopters?
What do helicopters have to do?
What are you talking about?
When Kai Wagner,
not a helicopter. He flipped. He would. That's like a free fall. That's Scream Machine at Six Flags. I mean, he just went like up and down.
I mean, that was nasty. That's just it's unreal.
And John, have you ever watched CONCACAF Champions League?
Yes.
Have you ever watched some of the calls that happen in Central America?
Yes, I have.
So you're surprised why?
No, I'm not.
You are. You said you were surprised.
Just.
I mean, I don't like the call. I'm mad about the call. I'm mad about the decision. I'm not surprised by it.
The only thing I'm surprised about is that someone from Philadelphia didn't throw a punch.
Good on them
I would have understood.
Yeah, good on them for not doing
it. Glesnes, I mean, with Glesnes going in, I would have thought that he would have been a contender.
He just shoved somebody. It's fine. Like, that's good. You're not going to generally get sent off for that, although if that had happened, and I've seen it happen before, where it is a horrible tackle and it gets a yellow, and then the retaliation of a shove gets a red, Philadelphia would have had to be pulled away from the referee. I can't believe it's a red in the sense that it just shouldn't be. When you look at it from a CONCACAF perspective, you understand that these things happen, sadly. All right, comments on CONCA Champions, because the haters are in full effect in the Twitch pitch. Burns says, Toronto looked like they were not yet ready physically, which I agree with. Burns not one of the haters, by the way. I don't want to brand Burned with the hating brush. The other MLS teams looked in better shape. I agree. I do think the
last 20 minutes Toronto was hurt.
Well, last 20 minutes, Atlanta was hurting too. Philly was okay. Portland was okay, but hurting. Toronto had a quarantine period in their preseason training, so because I think they had some positives early on, so I think they were probably behind everybody. So I understand it, and altitude, and the toughest opponent. That all factors in. Burns right on that, but yeah, I think they got behind on fitness. See, Ricky, I think we're defining things differently. Ricky says Toronto had the least impressive result of the four. Result, absolutely not, in my opinion. You could say they had the most impressive result of the four. The result, not the way they played, just the result, because they got a result in León. That doesn't happen very often. LAFC didn't do it last year. LAFC got spanked in León last year 2-0 and then overturned it at Bank of California. So, result, just looking at it on paper, you could absolutely argue that's the best one. I think it's second because of what Alajuelense was doing coming into the game. I put Philly's result third because I said it all along. Philly was playing a weak team. Saprissa is not very good.
No.
They're flat out not very good. So Philadelphia is good, and they took care of business, even not at full strength. The Portland Marathon result is fine. Marathon is not very good either. They won one game since February 24th, if I remember correctly. They're not one of the strongest teams in Honduras this season. So León came in 3 games unbeaten, 3 straight wins, and it's a tougher place to play than the others. And they had fans. So result, I think Toronto's up there. Performance and what they showed, they're at the bottom of the MLS teams. But those are two different things to me. The Toronto hate is real, Martha says in all caps. Now, while Chara is saying, why would you like Toronto? I don't like Toronto. I just don't hate them like some people do.
How much of it has to do with Josie and Michael Bradley?
Oh, I think it has a lot to do with Josie and Michael Bradley, even if some of the haters don't want to admit it.
Richie Larea getting penalties for kicking the dirt.
My dislike for Toronto is absolutely Richie Larea, because he never saw a dive that he didn't try to attempt.
True.
That is what I don't like about Toronto. Ricky says, did you forget about 2017 and 2018 Toronto? Again, I don't hate Toronto. Like, they're lower on the list for me with teams I hate. I don't like Toronto, but I don't have the hatred that others do. That 2017 Toronto team is probably the best in MLS history on the whole. And it's not just because they did a treble that included the Canadian Championship, which, yeah, is not quite as difficult as the Open Cup. They still did it. You know, they still won the Supporter Shield and won the MLS Cup. It's not easy to do. They won everything they could win that year. And then in the following up, early season in 2018, while everybody was getting injured, they got to the final of CONCACAF, which not many MLS teams have done in that format. So that team is the best we've seen in this league, I think. They did the most. So I respect Toronto. I think where it might come off like I'm pushing back against the haters so I like them. No, I respect them. I respect what they've done. I do have a lot of questions about what they do with Chris Armas. I was surprised by that hire. I think it's a little bit of a harder sell coming off of Greg Vanney and what he did. But I have respect for what that club has done, and I think Alejandro Pozuelo is one of the best players in the league. So it's Brett hanging out with us. What's up, Brett? Let everybody know what your upcoming streams are. I know a lot of our listeners like to hang out with you, and when you have streams going on. I don't know if you've got Europa League today. Let everybody know in the Twitch pitch, por favor, Brett. Now yelling about decision day collapse. I know. I was there. It was horrible. It stunk. The Supporter Shield was in the building waiting for Atlanta to lift it at the end of the day, and Atlanta came out and laid an egg.
Yeah.
Laid an egg. Ricky Ricardo's yelling at me, highlighting messages, calling me out.
Wow. I mean, you cannot
just because I didn't hate on Toronto,
still respect them.
I didn't even get into that. I just didn't hate them. That's all. I just called out the haters. I don't even like Toronto, and I'm getting branded with that because I don't hate them. It's craziness. Jason Nick says, there's a good amount of hate for Red Bulls in Orlando, but it's what Toronto has done to us that makes it more for them. And Bradley's punchable face. Yeah. There we go. Now we're starting to get to it.
There's your Bradley and Altidore. There it is.
Chris Armas did have a factor in it for Martha. Hated Toronto before. Adding Armas just fueled the fire hate. I don't know why Chris Armas even gets that so much.
Probably the dust up with Tata on the touchline, and it just carries over from Red Bulls.
I don't even know how many people remember that. Because the Red Bulls did everything possible to downplay it, which was stupid on their part. They should have put that everywhere they could, because it actually gave their team some personality. I don't, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. And Jarrett loves doing this to tick me off. The whole narrative of Chris Armas blew it is incredibly insulting to Atlanta United. It is, and I don't know why Atlanta fans do it, because who cares about Chris Armas? If you're an Atlanta fan, seriously. You're insulting a manager who has just a couple years of experience. I think Chris Armas could be a fine manager. I don't know. He's not yet. But the whole thing that he blew it means that they should have beaten Atlanta. No, because Atlanta, yes, they finished second to the Red Bulls in the season, but I think Atlanta showed they were the better team in the postseason. In that format, Atlanta was the better team to get it done. Chris Armas blowing it means that Atlanta shouldn't have won. Yeah. I don't know why that narrative continues. I don't get it. I mean, I guess it's funny to poke at Chris Armas, but why are we caring about Chris Armas so much? It really doesn't. He doesn't matter. He doesn't. He's a manager in the league. He was at a team that decided to get rid of anybody who had been there for any period of time. And by the way, and this is a very quick sidebar before we get back to everybody hating on Toronto. What the Red Bulls did to Ernesto Mata yesterday is very poorly handled. Ernesto Mata had been the Spanish language voice for over 20 years for the club. They told him yesterday, a few days before the season starts, that they were not going to bring him back. They hired somebody else. They made the announcement yesterday. They did not say anything about thanking him for his service to the club. Very disrespectful. Ernesto lives and breathes and bleeds that club, and he has for 2 decades. He shouldn't be treated that way. You want to go in a different direction, no problem. That happens. That's everybody knows that can happen. Yeah. But you got to show proper respect to somebody who has done so much for your club. And I was really surprised that was handled the way that it was. I don't get it. I don't really get that because there's no reason to treat a long-time voice of the club in that way. So really disappointed with that. Just the development of it initially, but also the way it's been handled from the club. I'm really disappointed. But back to the Toronto hate, since everybody hates Toronto these days. What else we got here? Talking about the leg injury. Yes, Josie did get through 3/4 of the match. I guess that's a step in the right direction. Katie got called out for being reasonable by acknowledging Toronto's success in CONCACAF Champions League. See, this hatred for Toronto, it clouds people's opinions.
I mean, if we want to keep dunking on them, let's dunk on the fact that the ball that Michael Bradley hit for a penalty still has not even started its downward trajectory yet.
True.
That thing's still rising.
It is, and I believe it might have been spotted in the orbit around Mars, possibly, yes. Maybe. We have a second for Bradley's face being punchable. Comment from Ricky just shows you where the hatred is for Toronto these days. Oh, they've had success in CCL for sure. They still suck.
Wow.
Man.
At least there's a concession.
I mean, a little bit. A lot of reactions to the tackle. Ricky said, which Saprissa player was the one who played for Bethlehem Steel? It was Cortez, who came in kind of late in the match. Yeah, everybody was more concerned with the card than the man who was injured, Kai Wagner. He was limping around afterwards, but yes. Byrne says, there's no way this doesn't have repercussions for this ref. This clip has been seen all over the world, and I'm sure the FIFA guys in Switzerland saw it as well. We went back and forth about this yesterday on the watch-along. I didn't see his FIFA badge. Byrne spotted it, and he is a FIFA ref, but he doesn't really get FIFA games. From what I could find in his track record, it's the referee from the Philly Saprissa game has done CONCACAF level games for a little while, but he hasn't been in a World Cup. He hasn't done anything to that level. I don't think he's had World Cup qualifiers. I think he's had Champions League, CONCACAF League, Gold Cup, and in youth tournaments in CONCACAF. So he's a FIFA ref since 2016, but he doesn't seem to be very high on the rankings of the FIFA refs in the CONCACAF region. But yeah, you might need to look at that badge after allowing that one to go, because that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Hutcho says your lighting, which Hutcho, John is not in his normal place. Hutcho does say your lighting is much better.
Well, it's because I turned on every light in this exceedingly generic hotel room.
Oh, well, there you go. Thomas Jewin believes the expression you were looking for, John, was he went ass over tea kettle.
That, yes.
That's
best phrase in the world.
That is old.
Also the most accurate.
Yeah.
Very
ass over teacup, ass over tea kettle. Yes, accurate.
Very old school. Alex Basine says one of the Saprissa players joins the scrum late and does the full spectrum of slow headbutt, shoulder bump, forearm shivers to avoid anything overt. That's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff.
All in the planning.
Badger,
I just watched the Philadelphia clip again, and I'm not sure how it was just a shove after the tackle. Instead, I don't know how it was not a full-on shoulder into the kidney rugby tackle, because I would not have blamed him one bit for that.
Badger Bob says, can we talk about how meaningless the all-important away goal is in certain situations? There's no scenario where that rule helps Atlanta or Philly. No, because you only got one. We'll go back to Bayern and PSG. That's a different conversation, because all Bayern needs to do is, win 2-0?
Yeah.
Win 2-0, they'd win on aggregate. If they won 2-1... they wouldn't go through because PSG got 3. So yeah, right. No, it helps because it's your tiebreaker. But as I said about Alawalense, and Philly will be saying the same thing, if you give up a goal early in the second leg, you're back to even. You shouldn't, because you should have the advantage in the second leg. You go get something on the road, you win at home, you should be fine. But yeah, it's a very narrow margin right now with just a 1-0. Perfect Tommy threw a battery. Hold on. Perfect Tommy threw a battery at the TV, I guess, on that tackle. Tommy, is your TV okay?
Wow.
Don't break TVs, Tommy.
That's Philadelphia as hell, though.
It is. It is.
I respect it.
What you got, Jarrett, before you go?
Yeah, I'm leading on this note, but Atlanta and Philadelphia both did the most important things. It wasn't scoring the goal; it was making the other number a 0. That is, you cannot lose the 180-minute tie if you don't give up goals.
Accurate. Good point, Jarrett. Thank you.
Sure.
We'll
I'm
see
going
you.
to watch this clip some more now because, God.
We'll talk to you tomorrow, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. Take that.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Thanks, Jarrett.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Let's get back to the final comments from the Twitch pitch of hatred before we move on to John's read. I want to see if Tommy's TV is okay. Martha throwing more shame on Toronto. Their strategy was shove and tackle from behind. Man. Byrne talking about the referees. Isn't the problem with the refereeing in CONCACAF and UEFA, honestly, that they give assignments to refs from smaller countries' leagues, but those refs can't handle bigger games? Yeah. Maybe UEFA and CONCACAF need to do exchange programs where you bring referees up to do games in Liga MX and do games in MLS, and then even, have MLS and Liga MX referees go down and work in those leagues. It'd be better to broaden the referee pool as a whole, because if you are in El Salvador and you only call games on a regular basis in the Salvadoran league, it's not the same level. It's not the same pace. It's not the same speed. You're going to struggle in other games. So you need those opportunities, and you don't always get them in CONCACAF Champions League, where there's a little more pressure, a little more on the line there. Ron Digital says, "What's wrong with hating a team?" Nothing's wrong with hating a team. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just really surprised by the amount of hatred. That's all. Ricky Ricardo also hates Mavinga for hitting LGP. That's true.
Yeah.
Was it LGP or was it somebody else? I thought it was somebody else. I might be wrong. I remember it. It was ridiculous from Mavinga. It was really
I remember
dumb.
the Mavinga hit, and I'm trying to remember now who it was.
It was really dumb.
Yeah.
Soccer for Good OG wants to know, which teams do I hate? I really, really don't like Orlando for a lot of reasons. I really don't like the Red Bulls for a lot of reasons. NYC, I think, would be on that list because, actually, no, they're not really on that list. I don't have the same animosity for NYC. The games are usually pretty contentious and pretty good, but it's not animosity. LAFC, I really don't like. That's turning into animosity, which is good. And Seattle is probably the one that I hate the most. And that goes back to old Atlanta Ruckus days. That gets the fan in me going, because Seattle beat the Ruckus in '95 in the A-League finals. And those Seattle teams were just big bruising teams that kicked you all day and had a good goalkeeper and would win 1-0 and awful soccer. And I've never been a fan of the Seattle Sounders. So that's the one that I hate the most.
Yeah, I can go with those. I can go with those four, and I definitely appreciate your rationale for adding Seattle to that mix. But yeah, for me, it's Orlando and Red Bulls and LAFC, which is really coming in from lane 8 and working their way up toward the front very, very quickly. But yeah, Seattle I can definitely appreciate for their time back in the A-League.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to skip ahead because there's too much hatred, people. There's too much. I can't keep up with all the hatred. I am going to grab this one from, I believe, Rich. Would think Atlanta had the Union as a rival because they would open the stadium for those games. I don't know if those games have gotten rivalry-esque between Atlanta and Philly. I think they could, and that's the thing about a potential CONCACAF quarterfinal.
Yeah,
with 2 legs between Atlanta and Philly, it might turn into a rivalry really quick.
Yeah, and the Medunian outburst, folks remember that one, but I don't think we've hit rivalry yet. Oh,
and Burned is 100% correct. I hate Palmeiras. I hate Palmeiras. They are an atrocity on the game right now. I'm with that one for sure, and they beat Defensa Justicia last night, so I'm not happy about that. Okay. It's 10:01. John has a read to do. He's getting anxious. He's getting impatient. So there's no telling what this read actually does and what happens in it. Steve Apolinsky, thank you for supporting the show, and maybe a preemptive apology for John telling everybody about what you do.
Considering that I'm in one of two time zones that Apolinski and Associates LLC helps their clients in. I'm in the Central time zone this time. He helps in the Central and the Eastern for clients in both Alabama and Georgia. Apolinski and Associates LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place you need to go, and it is said firm, Apolinski and Associates LLC. 3 different ways that you can do it. You can pick up the phone, get a free consultation, 404-377-9191. You can shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com, or go on the World Wide Web, large device or small. Type in aa-legal.com in the address bar. Hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances you to the homepage of Apolinski and Associates LLC. There's a lot of information to ingest. There are tabs that have pull downs that you can get all the information that you want about the kind of cases that they are a part of. All of the accolades that they get, in addition to one accolade that I will tell you about in just a little bit. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama. And if by looking at aa-legal.com, you still have questions, if the tabs don't give you all the information, if all the accolades, you want more information, there's a pop-up window that pops up, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison. Recognized as Legal Leap by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in their state of Georgia. It is Apolinski and Associates LLC, and the website is aa-legal.com. All right.
I'm going to see what people have to say about that.
From the Central Time Zone perspective this morning.
I don't know if I would put that on the Central Time Zone. -1 for poor hotel Wi-Fi. I don't think I'm not here for Alabama John. Or I think I'm not here for Alabama John. In jest, question mark. Accolade overuse again. +1 for Italian-style hand gestures. You know where that came from, Nick Leafy. This is just terrible. I'm sorry. John is trying to do worse than yesterday. 0.0002.
Wow. Considering I got a -12 yesterday, I think that's an improvement, though.
10 out of, we are actually talking about games, so reads are automatically above par. South Georgia is very forgiving.
Thank you, South Georgia.
No out of 10. Alex Basine has no ability to try to justify anything. He just gives you a 10.
Attaboy.
6.8, plus 1.5 for improved lighting, slow start, good finish, 8 overall. -1, when is John not in one of those 2 time zones? Good question. -1 in just information, question mark. -1 still taking time with the thanks to Chris H, 6.5. An 8. He took his Outback Bowl cup with him, +1, so a 1. Wow.
Very nice.
5, Central Time John ain't
Toronto
it.
FC hatred there.
No, it has nothing to do with Toronto FC. That's not one of the Toronto FC haters. This is Ricky, 5, Central Time John ain't it. Wow, explaining where he is and knowing he is in Central, +2. Spoke clearly, +2. Wi-Fi being funky, -4. Video and audio not in sync. Just have to laugh at that one. That there, -4, so 6. 8, 6, little verbose, I would agree. 10, doing your best Jarrett rambling about Scotland impression. 10, mentioned Central Time Zone, and it's a rainy, dreary day in Madison, Alabama. 9 overall. Lighting imbalance, -2. Curb pop-up, -3. Not a hater, +3, so an 8.
Who said I wasn't a hater?
3 out of 5. 4 out of 10. Okay, there we go. So, Modiflow with an update. This is becoming a weird situation in CONMEBOL with Copa Libertadores games that are getting underway. Final round of the qualification for the Libertadores. And from Modiflow, Paraguay refuses to host the Gremio players due to COVID concerns. Independiente del Valle and Gremio were supposed to play last night. CONMEBOL moved the match to Friday in Paraguay for reasons, And now
Yes.
it's unclear if the first leg will even take place. We saw this in Colombia, where they refused to bring a basketball team from Brazil in, and this is where things stand sometimes. CONMEBOL and the federations and somehow the national governments are going to have to get in sync here if you're going to be able to do international play. And there's a lot of concern around South America about Brazilian teams coming into their countries. There are some who've just flat out denied it. So I don't know how you do this. And you're going to run out of time here at some point because it's April 8th, I believe, without looking it up. Libertadores group stage is supposed to start in 2 weeks. You kind of got to get these 2 games played in some form or fashion unless you're going to condense it to one. Then you got to find somewhere to play it at a neutral site. And, yeah, it's a mess. Modiflow, keep us posted on that, please. The original game was suspended because of the COVID concerns. CONMEBOL moved the match out of Ecuador because probably money, according to Modiflow. So keep us posted on what's going on with that. You do have Bolivar hosting Atletico Junior tonight in Libertadores qualification. Conca Champions, you have Real Esteli at 8 o'clock hosting Columbus Crew, and you have Deportivo Pantoja hosting Monterrey. Deportivo Pantoja is, what are the odds now? They should be absurdly huge, but before they really weren't that bad for Monterrey, and it felt like stealing money.
Yeah, it's a little larger now. Crew is at a minus 127. Your draws at a plus 248, and Real Esteli is at a plus 350, basically. Pantoja is a plus 1135 in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. Your draw is a plus 537. Monterrey is a minus 500 on the nose.
That minus 500 feels like you're stealing money. You never know in these situations. I have not really seen what Monterrey sent for this game. I don't know what their roster is looking like. We knew Cruz Azul sent a lot of their U20s to play Arcaí. I don't know about Monterrey in terms of the quality of the roster they have sent. You might want to check on that first before you think about juice boxes in this one. But yes, that is the scenario. Also in the other game from yesterday that we haven't talked about, Club America 2-1 over Olympia. It was a late goal from Olympia to pull one back, but that's about what you expected. Maybe Club America to win just a little bit bigger, but they're in the driver's seat. The favorites are in a good spot here, and they all should advance. I don't know if there is anybody really set up for an upset in the second leg. It can happen. As we said, Alajuelense's narrow with Atlanta. Saprisa's narrow with Philly. But I don't know if any of the teams coming in on the road in the second leg in CONCACAF feel like, yeah, we're good. We're going to be able to take care of business. I think all of them are looking at it as a big uphill climb.
Yeah. Last night, Club America had 2 within a couple of minutes late first half. Vinas and Sergio scored. There were a couple chances in the second half where they could have put more on the board. They did not. And Olympia gets the late one. I want to say it was like in the 88th or 89th to make it 2-1. And you look at the teams that have gotten the positive results so far, and you're thinking that, that these guys should be the ones that will make their way through, and that the folks that ended up with the draws are feeling pretty good about it as well. So, right now you're looking at pretty much chalk heading into the second legs here next time around.
Yeah, it was not Club America's top team. It wasn't as far down as Cruz Azul's was, in my opinion. They got Bruno Valdez minutes. They got him a 90-minute game here, which they needed. Benedetti came on and played 10 minutes. That was part of the idea here for Santiago Solari. But you had some players who have experience in this. They rested some guys, too. Memo Ochoa did play in this one. It was a better team, somewhere between a B and a C. I think Cruz Azul would have been somewhere between a C and a D, but it was not their top team. That's definitely the case. Monterrey, it won't be their top team, but I don't know how far away from being their top team it will be. We'll just have to wait and see on that. What else is on your mind, John? What else did you see yesterday? Do you have things you want to tell us about that you saw?
Well, I mean, we got Twitters. We have Twitters. We can.
Oh, what do we have on the Twitters? Yeah, we need to get caught up because there might be some comments that we need to touch on first.
Yeah. So getting into the Twitters, trying to go back as far as I can here. Andrew Bucciolato says, I think CONCACAF has some serious work to do with consistency, might need to get some training from another federation, especially after the Philly game yesterday.
It's been the case way before the Philly-Saprissa game. One call doesn't make me think that. A lot of it's game management. And in general, I mean, that game, I don't know if you could have managed it differently to avoid that at the end. It's a problem. You are starting to see some referees come through. The one that we had for the Alajuelense Atlanta game, 29 years old, to get that game. You are trying to promote the next generation through, but it's not just, okay, they do well in their country, they do games domestically, and then they just start getting booked. There has to be support for them. There has to be a development process, and that's something where I don't know how much CONCACAF puts into it. I don't know how much they have to put into it, to be perfectly honest. It needs to continue to improve because CONCACAF refereeing as a whole has been a problem for as long as I can remember. Because the situation is more pronounced than Europe, but it's the same basic idea as Byrne mentioned earlier. If you have two big leagues in CONCACAF, an MLS and Liga MX, and people would have told you 5 years ago that MLS wasn't a big league and it didn't help referees get better. Now it is. You've got those two leagues. You've got the referees from Mexico, from the United States, and Canada that work in these two leagues. There's a big drop to the rest of the leagues, and we're seeing it on the field now. There's also, and I think this is the biggest thing, there's a big drop in terms of the pace of matches in the smaller leagues. And not having a league that tests you more in terms of being fast-paced, it's hard for a referee to go into a game that's faster-paced than they are accustomed to and manage it well. It's hard for them to make the right decisions. It's hard for them to do the things that they need to do in those situations. So I think CONCACAF really needs to start to get creative on how they can bridge that gap, because if the league that the referees work in primarily is slower paced and not as high quality, you can't really expect that referee to be as good as a referee from Mexico or the U.S. or Canada.
Ellen Reynolds is in, and she says, after listening to the latest Written on the Pitch, I've been thinking about those saying that Brad Guzan should have just allowed the goal to happen instead of risking the red card. If he had done that, those same people would be shredding him. He timed it wrong, but at least he tried. Shrug shoulders emoji.
You can't. It's just impossible as a goalkeeper. You're already coming for the ball because you know the pass is coming your way. The only thing he could have done differently is not go to ground there. You're not going to let him score a goal because, and that's the thing that I don't even understand why that's a question here. You're 22 yards from goal. You're just outside the 18. The attacker's got to get to the ball and turn. What do you want Brad to do? Lay down? Like, no. Like, he can still play. There's still things he can do to play. He doesn't have to go for the tackle in that moment, on slide tackle, which is risky. He could have stopped inside his 18 and held his ground. He could have went for a standing tackle. He could have, when he saw the pass was going to be short, back off. Like, there's a lot of different things he could have done. It's not about letting them score, because that wasn't the situation. I know when there are times that comes up. That wasn't the situation. He had other options other than going to ground in a tackle. And he was late on the tackle. He was late on the tackle because the pass was short, and Barco put him into that situation. But he had other solutions. The solution was not to let them score because of a bad pass. He still had other ways to prevent the goal.
Day is in. Refs are people too, and there's not corruption in CONCACAF. CCL fever is mostly just confirmation bias. Then he has a question about the lineup. Was Dom a healthy scratch, saving his legs, or did Coach think Mulraney would provide a better matchup? Mulraney was great, but I assume Dom is the preferred starter at right wing.
I don't know. I don't think the question came up, so I don't have an answer for that one. I was a little surprised we didn't have that question asked about Jürgen Damm, but I don't know the situation, so I couldn't tell you. It's a weird one because I do think Dom is the preferred option on the right wing. I thought he was coming into the season, but he was not here. And that was a little bit of a surprise because I thought if you weren't comfortable starting Mulroney, maybe you would move Barco into that wide spot that they did and have Dom on the other side. But he did both. And I don't know if it was an injury issue with Dom. I don't know if it's a fitness issue. I don't know if it was a training issue. I don't know, because the question didn't come up. So we don't have an answer to that. Maybe we'll get one before the next match.
Michael Head with a clarification about the opening monologue. The curbs in my hometown are made of Stone Mountain granite, not gravel, and that's why they made the gouge.
Gravel was kind of strange. Gravel was a weird thing, but granite makes a lot more sense. They're very different.
Yeah. In our Champions League discussion, Antonio says Bayern is the Undertaker as far as I'm concerned. They ain't dead yet.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I'm with that. I think Bayern wins.
Also on the board, the Colonel is in this morning, and the Colonel says in response to 3 players suffering racial abuse on social media in recent days, he says Swansea is going to shut down their social media. No official social media posts for 7 days. Hashtag enough is enough.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that makes a statement, and I hope the social media companies listen. I'm all for free speech. It's not First Amendment in other countries. I think sometimes that gets a little confused. I'm all for free speech. I'm all for that, but I am not for people having to deal with idiots, racists, attacking them on their social media channels. There is no way that should be happening without repercussions in 2021. So if Instagram, if Facebook, if Twitter can't deal with that, then yeah, you got to think about other ways to communicate. And it stinks. I mean, Twitter has been very good for me in terms of learning more, in terms of meeting people, in terms of marketing this show, branding. It was big for us with Soccer in the Streets when I was there. It's been very important because of, I think, if you use it correctly, it can be a very valuable tool. It's a megaphone. Twitter's a megaphone. Instagram, Facebook have their own personalities. I do the most with Twitter. It's a megaphone. You can control who sees you and who doesn't. You can block people if you need to. You can mute people if you need to. These are things you can do to control it, but if you're a public figure, it doesn't give people free reign to say horrible things to you and then, oh, well, you're famous, so, that's just part of it. No, it's not. They're human beings, and nobody deserves that. And Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and every other type of social media service that is out there or will be out there has to figure out some way to deal with this. And if that means they have to take some of the money that they're making from advertising out of the coffers and put it towards people who are going to be charged with this kind of oversight, then do it. Because this is what will happen in response if it continues. People will leave your platform. People will stop using your platform because it's frankly not safe for mental health. It's just something that has to be dealt with. And I understand the free speech components of it. I understand all those elements of it. That does not give people free reign to try to do what they're doing with it. I'm not going to be on the side of a racist just because of free speech here. No, I'm not. It's not right because it shouldn't be happening on these platforms. And it's just it's going to get simple. And Swansea, I think, is starting to point the way. Thierry Henry pointed the way. If it can't be dealt with, if that's just the price of being on these platforms, is you're going to get yelled at by racists and they're going to say horrible things to you that can affect your mental health, then you're not going to be on those platforms. And the platforms are going to be the ones to suffer. So they need to deal with it. They want to make their money on advertising. They want to make their money doing their things. Make it a safe place for people to be. If it's not a safe place for people to be, they're going to leave. Yeah. It's that simple. That's what'll happen. And you'll go to a place where you can control the intake of messages from people. And that's just what it'll be. So if they want to keep their business, they need to figure out a way to deal with this, because there are certain things that are just no-brainers. We've talked about it many times. If there are emojis that people are using in racist manners, they should be eliminated. Flat out. That's an easy fix. Don't give me any excuses why you can't do that. If people are using them in racial or violent threats, they should not be on the platform. That is an easy one. If it's hard for you to justify making people identify themselves on these platforms, well, again, people are going to leave. But there are certain things there's no excuse for. There's no excuse for some of these emojis that are being used to attack people, and they shouldn't be there. So it's got to change. Good on Swansea. I hope it has an impact. I hope it's not just Swansea hurting themselves for a week. I hope it has an impact. I hope these platforms are listening. I hope they're trying to solve this issue, because ultimately it's going to hurt their business. And look, I mean, I'm not even getting into the right wrong of it. You know how I feel about that. If these people want to make as much money as they can, and that's why they're in business, they're going to have to deal with this. They can't just keep ignoring it.
And the Swans Trust came out at the beginning of the show in Showtime this morning, and was in concert with the club itself. The Swans Trust is not going to have any kind of transmission over social media for the next 7 days as well. So you have the Swans Trust, 30% of the ownership group of Swansea City, plus the team itself. They're not going to do anything for the next 7 days when it comes to any social media platform.
Yeah, a couple of things, and Thomas, this is good to point out for people who I think misunderstand the First Amendment. In the U.S. on the First Amendment and free speech, it doesn't mean you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence.
No, that's different too. Like, even the First Amendment in free speech, you can't just say whatever you want. You're not allowed to utter fighting words. Right. Racial incidents and these things that are getting said would qualify in that. It only applies in government restrictions of speech as well. The First Amendment is incredibly misunderstood by people who are representing people in our government a lot of times. Which is always good. And Ricky says that freedom of speech is not freedom from consequence, 100%. That even in those situations where your freedom of speech is protected under the First Amendment, which a lot of times people claim it and it's not, when it is, it doesn't mean you're free from consequences. So it's a problem. And Kefsi, yeah, you're right. And this has come up, and I don't have all of the details behind the scenes on it, but NYC's issues with supporters and a supporters group that has harbored people who have been involved in these sorts of things. And there have been racial incidents that have been brought to light about NYC's fan base, and not the whole fan base by any stretch. Certain individuals who have not been removed. And it's kind of trying to be swept under the rug. It is a problem. The harassment thing's a different conversation. That's why I don't want to lump that together. That's a whole nother issue. That's very bad handling by their front office with the David Villa situation, and they did an internal investigation, and there are issues, and they said there are issues, and they kind of really didn't do a whole lot about those issues. That's kind of counterproductive. That's different. That's not a free speech, this other issue. So I'm leaving that to the side. It's a problem. Don't get me wrong. The issue with the supporter side of it, where they've left that sweep under the rug, yeah, in a big picture world, it does affect the business of MLS as a whole, and I do think MLS needs to put pressure on NYC to get their house in order, 100%. But NYC needs to get their house in order first as well. Like, it shouldn't even have to come to that. Like, this is getting a little ridiculous on both of those fronts, that this should have been dealt with a long time ago, and it's a problem. But yeah, they're separate issues. They're both big issues. They both need to be dealt with better by the club. And if they can't be dealt with by the club, the structure of MLS should lead the league to make them deal with them better and make these things get corrected. It sucks. Again, it sucks that this is part of the soccer conversation these days, but it is. Yeah. It just is. You had Liverpool with a big statement. You had Liverpool players who were racially abused. I mean, it feels like every game there is somebody who is getting racially abused online by a bunch of idiots, and it's not being dealt with in the proper way. And, you know, you walk this line back and forth of, do you talk about it because then it gives fuel to idiots to go do it themselves, copycat nonsense. I feel like you have to, though, because by not talking about it, it might fade into the background. I don't want it to fade into the background. I want it to be dealt with and gone away. So I don't want these players to have to deal with this from copycats. I don't want these players to have idiots who hear people talking about it and say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I don't want that to be the case. But we have to deal with this now so it doesn't continue. And it has to be the pressure put on these platforms and these companies to deal with it properly for it to go away. Blah. It's a mess. It's just got to go away, and we got to keep pushing on it to make it go away. What else we got on Twitter?
Follow up from Day Day, and go to our Twitter timeline so you can see the screen cap that Day Day has pulled as I talk through this. It's about the tackle. The tackle on Wagner probably deserved red, but the reaction from folks not on the field has been over the top. In this Twitter ref's humble opinion, Blanco gets some ball, takes out Wagner with the trailing knee. Wagner's reaction probably didn't help his case, but I hope he's okay.
No, 100% Day-Day. I have to thoroughly disagree, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't care about the ball. Getting the ball has zero to do with this. That has to be stopped in this conversation. Getting the ball doesn't mean you can do whatever you want in the tackle. 100% no. That is not how the laws of the game are written. I don't care about the ball part of it. You can see in that angle, because that's before his legs get extended, he's going in studs up, 2-footed, on a player's plant leg. That's violent conduct. Serious foul play. That's, figure out which one you want to go with. It doesn't matter about the ball. That has to be eliminated from this conversation for good. It doesn't matter about getting the ball. And it doesn't matter about taking the player out with a trailing knee. He puts Wagner in a dangerous spot. He puts a player's health at risk with this tackle that is unnecessary at that moment in the match. Any referee in the world is going to give a red there, except for this one. Any referee in the world should give a red there. The ball has nothing to do with it. It doesn't. We have to stop thinking that. Greg Garza got a red when he got the ball, but he went in studs up and his foot bounced off the top of the ball, studs up into a player's knee. That's a red. Getting the ball doesn't mean you've got immunity from anything else. No, it doesn't. It can mean on a lower scale of a tackle, was it a foul or not? But in this, you can't go into people's studs up. 2-footed, period. Red card every single day. Every single day. Not over the top at all for me. Every single day it's a red card. And it needs to be a red card. And if that's not a red card, you're going to give license for people to get their legs broken. It's a red card every day. The ball part of it, nothing to do with it.
Tafka's in this morning, and apparently last month, former Netherlands forward Marco van Basten called on football's lawmakers to consider scrapping the offside rule, saying the game would be better off without it. Tafka says, is he insane? Do we really want forwards hanging out in the 18 the whole match waiting for big passes?
Do we really want people to keep crying about offside every day? Like, I don't like it either. I don't think it's a good idea. But, I mean, no, he's not insane. I think he's probably just sick of the offside conversation. If forwards do that and teams do that, people will find other strategies. I don't want that because then it gives the Big Sams of the world more license to be very Big Sammy. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. But do we want to keep arguing about an armpit and having this nonsense with it? No, we don't. They're going to have to redefine the offside rule. They're going to have to redefine that law. They're going to have to fix it. If you want to have this conversation, have it. And I think you'll find really quickly that it won't make the game better by doing it that way. There are better solutions to it. Marco van Basten was also a forward, so he's going to look at it from that perspective. What it would do, in my opinion, is you would see bad teams try to do that and have forwards just stay around the top of the 18 and you just play long to them. The response would be good teams who are playing those bad teams who do that is they wouldn't be able to play as high of a line. You would have some who would still try to do it, and then you'd still get that long ball over the top. you wouldn't be able to play as high of a line. You would have to commit players back to it. So if you're following the theory of Gabriel Heinze and many managers, you always want one more defender. If they leave one forward up top, you're going to leave two back. You're going to leave two back, and then that's going to take away that option of just bombing it long, because then your odds are a waste of time to do that. But if you're a bad team, you might still do it. And all it does is it starts the build-up play further back for the good teams. It's not good. It makes the game worse, in my opinion, but it's not this, like, oh my gosh, everybody run and stick their heads in the sand and freak out, and it's not the solution. But it would be easily handled by good teams. It wouldn't change the game to where bad teams then are going to win more games. It would just change the way good teams approach it. Their build-up would start from a deeper position. They'd have more players who would have to hang back with those guys, and eventually you'd take away the option of playing long like that, because there's not really a whole lot to come from it.
A couple of other thoughts that'll catch us up on Twitter. Rich Ransom on the Twitter side of things, he says, went down to Costa Rica on a Wednesday in Costa Rica, survived being CONCACAF'd, and got 3 points. Perfect start for the Union in CCL. Hashtag, we want Bama. I mean, we want Atlanta.
It's not getting CONCACAF, Rich. It was a bad call, and it should have been a red, and it was at the end of the game, and it had no effect on the match. Philadelphia was the better team by far. They should have won by more. Didn't get CONCACAF at all. We gotta make sure that expression has meaning. It gets overused. It was a bad call at the end of the game that had no effect on the way it played out. Philadelphia went down to play a bad team in Costa Rica and was a better team, even with the absences they've had. Philadelphia should have won that game. Anybody who told you different wasn't paying attention to what Saprissa was coming into it, and also didn't give Philadelphia enough respect, even not at 100%. I thought Martinez was excellent for Philly. Shabilko is one of the most underrated players in the league. Philadelphia can go and take care of business against bad teams like Saprissa, and Saprissa is a bad team. I know the name. I know the fear. I get it. It's not that Saprissa anymore. It's a bad Saprissa, and Philadelphia did what they should have done. They should have one player for Saprissa red carded for this next leg in Blanco. It didn't happen. It won't change anything in the second leg either. Philadelphia will be just fine.
A couple of other Atlanta United thoughts to wrap things up. Tafka says, and it's to the Toronto hatred. Tafka says, if Atlanta had won the Supporters' Shield in 2018, we don't win MLS Cup. That egg was a wake-up call, in my opinion. It changed our mentality and intensity right when we needed it.
Yeah. I mean, you hate not winning that trophy, but that performance was much more on Atlanta. Toronto didn't do anything wrong. They just played. Atlanta was crap on the decision day game. There's no way around it. So hating the team that beat you when you played like crap is no, you just played like crap. There's plenty of reasons to hate Toronto. I get it. I understand. We're having some fun here. But I think you do have to respect Toronto, and you have to respect that they did find a way to get a 1-1, even with a lot of luck yesterday. It's a good result for them, and we'll see if they can do it in the second leg. We'll see if they're anything closer to full strength by the time they get to the second leg. That's the biggest element.
Last one comes from Old Swarthy, and Old Swarthy says that he was looking at the MLSsoccer.com depth charts. They consistently have Hernandez over Lennon on the Atlanta United depth chart and talk about how Hernandez is a big new arrival. Why?
No idea. 100% zero idea. And it's not a knock on Ronald Hernandez. It's disrespectful to Brooks Lennon. I don't understand it. Hernandez is coming off of a year where he played 6 times in Scotland. He was good in Norway with Stabæk. Still Norway. Not Argentina, not Brazil, not Spain, not England, not Germany, not France, Norway. And that was 2019. He played 6 times for Aberdeen. It didn't work. There's a lot of reasons why. This is a much better move for him. He is a Venezuelan national team player, not a U.S. national team player, Venezuelan national team player. Brooks Lennon is further along than Ronald Hernandez, and it's not even close. Like, Ronald Hernandez will fight for time. Ronald Hernandez will see some time. But this idea that coming in, based off nothing, that Brooks Lennon should go to the bench and Ronald Hernandez should be the starter, I have no idea what the justification for that is. It makes 0 sense to me. Could it happen where in the season Ronald Hernandez wins the job? Yes. It could, because that's sports. That's the game. But coming in, You compare what Brooks Lennon has done in his career to Ronald Hernandez, and they are not equal. They just aren't. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just the cool thing to do because I don't have a justification for it. I don't know.
That catches us up on the Twitters.
All right. A lot of people talking about the red card or should have been a red card, but it wasn't a red card in the game with Philadelphia and Saprissa. I'm going to give you the actual definitions of two things that are sending off offenses. Serious foul play, a tackle or challenge that endangers the safety of an opponent or uses excessive force or brutality must be sanctioned as serious foul play. Any player who lunges at an opponent in challenging for the ball from the front, from the side, or from behind using one or both legs with excessive force or endangers the safety of an opponent is guilty of serious foul play. You could have written that about this tackle. Violent conduct is not challenging for the ball. That's my mistake in even mixing those two things up. Serious foul play is what should have gotten Blanco sent off in this situation. There's just no way around it. Serious foul play is the definition from IFAB. Byrne said it's honestly the most egregious non-red I can remember. I don't think I've ever seen this in any league. I've seen it in leagues, not often though. This is really bad. It's really bad. It checks every box. It checks every box for serious foul play. The ball has nothing to do with it. Lot of anger about Marco Van Basten's proposal about no offside. Tommy says I'll take the complaining over offsides over cherry picking. They do need to redefine it, but I don't think that's the way to redefine it. We've went round and round about that. We'll see what they come up with. Arsene Wenger has come up with something on offside, and I wonder what it would do to people's expectations of how the rule is handled. IFAB said last month they're continuing to review it. They're planning to test technology that would allow for semi-automatic decisions to limit the need for long waits for VAR reviews. Wenger said he supported the automated offside technology, which directly informs a referee's assistant if an incident is offside. According to FIFA, semi-automated offside technology provides VAR with additional information before the referee makes the final call. Arsene Wenger, who is the head of football development, quoted in the Times as saying, "The automated offside, I think, will be ready for 2022. I'm pushing very hard to have the automated offsides, which means straight away the signal goes to the linesman. On average, the time we have to wait is around 70 seconds, sometimes 1 minute and 20 seconds. It is so important because we see so many celebrations are canceled after that for marginal situations." Can you get to this where it is automated, a buzzer tells the linesman in the play, it's offside? I mean, I can understand how you get there with the technology. If you're using the technology to break it down and it's a minute or 2 minutes later, can it be faster to break it down? Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I
just think of Hawkeye in tennis as my comparison for the moment.
Would that please everybody? Because everybody always cites the idea about, they celebrated and it was taken away and it changes the emotion of the game, which is one aspect of VAR, by the way. People want to get rid of VAR as a whole because of that incident. No, VAR is not going anywhere. We need VAR because we need to be able to get calls right. Offside is a different issue that VAR is related to, but not overall defining it. There is now, since we can actually judge offside 100% correctly using technology, now we don't like that so much. So do we need to define offside differently? That is part of the conversation. Can there be this automated buzzer, yes, it's offside, that immediately then a flag goes up and then the play is stopped or it buzzes the referee? Doesn't even have the flag to go up, so you don't even have to add more seconds. Buzzes the referee, it's offside, play stops. So you don't have to worry about the injuries that people have worried about, and you don't have to worry about celebrations being canceled. If you can get there, it's better than what we have now. It's better than the current, because then it eliminates a couple of the complaints, but I still think the offside law needs to be rewritten and needs to be tested to account for the fact that we can define it by that close of a situation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just trying to think of tennis fans and Hawkeye and whether or not there's any kind of outrage over Hawkeye. And then you have the follow-up of in the appeals process, if a player wants to challenge if a serve is in or out, then they have the video evidence that is linked to the Hawkeye technology, so you can actually see where balls landed with serves and things like that. So I would think that if you can get it down, if you can get your timing down, that you're always going to have folks who are going to sit there and complain one way or the other. But I think by comparison, you'll probably have less if you have the semi-automated Hawkeye-ish technology to call offsides. I think there'll be less. I think you might have folks understand that it's a technology thing, and you can't really argue at a machine.
Yeah, and look, Thomas, I don't know. I don't have the answers to this. But Hawkeye and GLT are simplistic analyses. Where was the ball? Offside rule requires multiple locations involving players from both teams and a ball at a specific moment. How does the system decide that a ball is played? I don't know. I'm guessing there are chips in the ball. I'm guessing there are things that we haven't been involved in understanding how the system works. I'm going to leave that to the experts. I think there's a lot of people who are maybe trying to be experts about the technology aspect of it. I want to know it works, and I want to know it's 100% correct before it's used, it's implemented. Right. But I don't know how they do that. I can't break that one down for you. I don't know. I would assume that they would get it. And then Byrne brings up the question, but that technology would only be available in the highest leagues. How does that work for lower leagues, or will there be different rules? That's something IFAB and FIFA have tried not to do. You might have to now. Or then it's just going to be back to, the only other way for me is if you keep the offside law as it is, you don't change anything, and you decide that we don't want to have these incidents, then offside has nothing to do with VAR, and the AR has to put their flag up when they think it's offside immediately. Nothing's going to be reviewed, and whistles get blown, and then you'll go back and look at it, and you will see situations where it wasn't offside, and the AR got it wrong, and then we'll be yelling about something different. That's just the reality here. Can you get to where we're not yelling? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But I want to at least get to where we're not yelling about, is the call right or wrong?
Right.
By the laws of the game. If we can get there, I can live with it. I don't want to go back to, and I mention it every time, but it stands out to me, the Women's World Cup, where there were multiple goals that would have been wiped away without VAR, because the AR got it wrong and put the flag up at the end of the play, said it was offside. They found out it wasn't offside, and in VAR world, the goal stood, as it should have. Pre-VAR, the goal would have been taken away. AR's got calls wrong before. It happened. So I want to get the calls right. They do need to better define the law now that we can get the calls 100% right, and we're not guessing. Based off those things that Thomas says about how it's hard for technology, that's even harder for a person. Because you're looking down the line, you're trying then to time it with a ball that could be played 50 yards back, and you're looking down the line, and you're looking to see if people are offside. How does the AR do it? I would trust technology to do it better than the AR.
Yeah.
That's the idea that I think where people have an impression that it's worse now. No, it's better now. It's not perfect. I don't think. I don't know. But it's absolutely better now because you're not relying on somebody's eyesight. It is what it is. Abby, you mention it every time, and I understand. Waiting for the flag drives me nuts. Someone's going to get hurt. First off, I don't think anyone's gotten hurt because that comes up a lot, and I get it. I don't think anyone's gotten hurt from it. I think you've had a couple collisions. You've had some things that have happened, but the idea that someone's going to get hurt, I disagree with because we just haven't seen it enough. I don't like it either, but in the current way the everything is written and formatted, you have to let it play out. Otherwise, if you do what we saw in the Dortmund-Manchester City game, which wasn't an offside situation, but a whistle, I know a flag's not a whistle, but the flag is implying the whistle should be blown. We saw it in City and Dortmund, where the whistle was blown early, and it was a bad call, and it took away a goal from Borussia Dortmund. VAR couldn't do anything about it because the whistle was blown. And people complained. Like, that's the thing, is there's not a perfect way. The game's not going to be called perfectly. That's impossible. We want the judgments to be done correctly and consistently. We do want to give the referees every tool possible. But if we're going to use replay to get calls right, you have to let it play out on the field so then replay can actually analyze it and do it effectively. Because if you stop it, if you say we're not going to allow that, then replay's not involved in offside. And if that's what people want, then that's fine. I don't want to hear one person, and I know we will, I don't want to hear one person, if that's the change that happens, and they say offside has nothing to do with VAR anymore, you can't look at it, and ARs are going to put their flags up quick. I don't want to see one segment on TV about, look, the AR got this wrong. He was onside by a foot. That should be a goal. That would have won that team the championship. I don't want to hear a word, because you can't have it both ways. And that's just the reality. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, just I didn't know. We've got Europa League juice boxes and other news notes and nuggets and things left unsaid before we get ready to go to Dalton tonight. One other thing popped up on Twitter.
Okay.
And it's also from Antino.
Okay.
And Antino would love to get your thoughts on the article in The Athletic from Felipe Cardenas detailing Heinze's change in tactics, shape, and positioning.
Okay, hold that for 1 second. Will says Van Dijk got hurt in an offside situation. That's a completely different situation. That was not what Abby's talking about. That was a bang-bang situation. You were not going to, in that play, get the flag up fast enough and have the whistle blown to blow it dead. So, no, that's not the same situation. People got hurt in offside situations before this. I think what Abby's saying is where the play is allowed to go on for seconds, and you have an incident where somebody could get hurt. I think that's a completely different thing. Back to, Antino, about Felipe's article. I did have a chance to check it. What did Antino want me to get into?
Would love to get your thoughts on the new article detailing Heinze's change in tactics, shape, and positioning.
He didn't really change much in the game. I mean, he changed when he went to 10 because he had to, but it really wasn't even that big of a change, to be honest. I didn't see what Felipe saw in the game, first off. If you were on the watch-along, I said at that point in the second half when it started to change, one, they dropped deeper than I thought they would. I think they had to. I think they got forced into it a little bit more than they were comfortable with. But what happened, I said it was a 5-2-2 is the way I described it, and that sounds like that's what Gabriel Heinze was saying. The way that happens from the 3-4-3 that you started in, and you started in a 3-4-3, and look, you can get wherever you want with it. It's maddening when we get to this at times with tactics, because I feel like there is a real push in terms of the soccer community making this as complicated as possible, and I don't know why. I don't know if people are trying to talk over your heads out there who are watching. I don't know if they want to, make sure that the fans don't know enough. I don't get it. I'll break it down to you really simple, and I'll show you if you're watching on Twitch, and I'll talk through it so people who are listening to the podcast understand it. So it was a 3-4-3 is the way that this team was initially positioned. That's what you would call it, is a 3-4-3. Yes, you could call it, and red is Atlanta, you could call it a 3-2 if you want to put the wingbacks there, 2-2-1. You could say it is a 3-4-2-1. You could put in all kinds of different dashes and numbers and break it into a bunch of lines. You call it a 3-4-3 to keep it simple, because that's how it played. You had three center backs. That's the important thing. Sosa was a center back. You had two central midfielders, Ibarra and Heinemann. You had wing backs, outside backs, what have you, in this setup because of the way you played in the first 45 minutes. They were not part of the back line. It was not a line of five. It was 3-4-3. And you had your wide players here. So, that's a little different. We've talked about Heinze wanting the width. Well, when you have two players wide in similar positions, you've got to figure that out. You've got to create your triangles with your central midfielders. You've got your triangle back here. You've got to figure that out with your back line of three, with your triangle on the left of, in this case, it was Bello, it was Heinemann, it was Barco, and then on the right side, it was Lennon, it was Ibarra, and it was Mulroney to start. So 3-4-3 is what you started in. Now, you get your goalkeeper sent off. You have to come bring somebody in. You sacrifice Mulroney. So then what did you do to change as the game went on? So you take Mulroney out. You take your right winger out. You're not just going to leave that open. So, exactly. I'll get to that in a second. So you get to your wing backs, your outside backs dropping deeper because they have to. Your two central midfielders needed to drop a little bit deeper than they did. And you're not going to then play with a left winger and a forward. That doesn't make any sense. You're going to get to two here. Heinze explained it where he wasn't worried about the crosses coming from wide positions. He had to sacrifice something. You're playing with 10. He sacrificed out here. So Alawalenze could play 2-on-1 against Lennon and Bello. And they did. Because he felt like his center backs, Walks, Robinson, and Sosa, could win the crosses. And they did. Where I thought Alawalenze was most dangerous was because the two central midfielders didn't drop deeper and get tucked in a little bit to take this space away. They were a little bit more like this than they needed to be. So Alawalenze started to get into that zone 14. He needed to be a little tighter. At times, yeah, and this is maybe where there was confusion, Barco was dropping to help chase. I think you saw at times chasing from the other side too. So at times, and this is why formations and calling these things in these numbers, and especially going to like 5 dashes of different numbers, is a waste of time. At times, yeah, it looked like 3 and 1 up here. At times, it looked like a diamond. At times, it probably looked like 3 and 1. Because the game isn't rigid. You're not playing it on a sheet of paper. You're not playing it with numbers. You're playing it with people who move and the other team who's going to move. So the biggest thing about this, to keep it very simple, because that's what we try to do. I don't want to make this mysterious. I want you to understand how I see him playing. And I'm not him. I'm not Gabriel Heinze. I'm going to get things wrong. I'm going to try to explain something in a way, and I'm going to get it wrong. I'm going to see it, and I'm going to get it wrong. That happens to everybody. That's okay. But I want to try to keep it as simple as possible in general in the conversation. This team will predominantly play out of a 4-3-3 shape. Predominantly. When the other team plays 2 center backs, you're going to play 3 center backs. Or plays 2 forwards, you're going to play 3 center backs. That's what you saw here. They play 2 up top. Sosa dropped. He played as a true center back. And you played a 3-4-3. The only change was your outside back step up a little bit higher. One of your central midfielders drops into that back line. That's the 3. The 4 is now with the outside backs as wing backs or as wide midfielders, whatever you want to call them. Your 2 wingers up top and your forward. That was the change in the starting lineup. When you have a red card, you got to adjust completely based off the situation. Heinze explained that his adjustment then was to have 2 and 2 in front of a line of 5 because the wing backs come back to defend from deeper positions, and that's it. So it's not big and bold and mysterious. It's not anything that's really hard to follow in terms of why he played 3 center backs and what change he made with the red card. He did that because of what the game told him to do. The game that he was worried about was Alawalenze playing through the middle and hurting you. He wanted to take that away. He did. For the most part, I think at times that midfield got a little separated, a little further away from the back line than you wanted, but that's going to happen. In general, it worked. What you had to concede was more crosses from the width. More crosses from the width. Bernd, I 100% agree with you. He says, it's funny how Heinze's 3-4-3 is well received by the online community, whereas Frank de Boer's was dumb. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. A little more fluid. And that's the difference between the two managers. Is Heinze is going to embrace fluidity and interchange. De Boer is going to embrace rigid and playing to keep it organized. But the shape was basically the same. Maybe the wide forwards were a little bit wider than they were under Heinze. It wasn't as more of that 3-4-2-1 if you want to talk about where they're going to start in position. That we saw at the beginning of 2020 and we saw late in 2019 at times. But, yeah, it's not dramatically different. It's just not. I think the difference is that Frank went to that formation as his base. He went to 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1 as his base. He wanted three center backs to be more secure, not because of a tactical move. Gabriel went to three center backs because of what the opposition was going to present to him. And that's why. I think their base will be 4-3-3. And looking at MLS with the majority of teams playing some version of a 4-3-3, he will play that primarily. Philadelphia plays two up top. There's a couple other teams that can play two up top that'll make him play three center backs. But the way things change, like a game is going to make it look like a 4-3-3 is a 3-5-2, is a 3-3-4, is a 3-2-5. I mean, that just happens in the game. That's why formations and positions at times can get overrated. It is about how many center backs you have. It is about how many forwards you have. It is about roles and responsibilities in other parts of the field. Those are the biggest things.
And one other thing, while you were breaking down what we saw the other night, Ricky Ricardo, and this is going to take a little bit of detective work. Ricky Ricardo, yesterday, the U.S. Open Cup held their official draw to decide which two Open Division amateur teams will take part in Open Cup. They had that yesterday in Chicago. It was decided that it would be Newtown Pride FC of Connecticut and FC Golden State Force of USL League Two that were going to be those two open spots. Ricky has come in and said that it's strange because Golden State Force isn't even playing this year and they almost haven't tweeted in a year.
I don't know. I mean, there's not detective work. It's they won the draw to be that team, and I guess they met the requirements that the Federation had. Nothing's ideal. I mean, we can get worked up about it, but it was a draw because if it wasn't, if U.S. Soccer just picked the lower division teams to go, then people would be hopping mad about it. So you do the draw. They're the ones who won it. Are they super organized? Probably not. They're not going to play this season because of USL League 2 and that division not playing. The only thing that can happen now is for them to be declared like they're not going to play. And U.S. Soccer's trying not to do that. They said that they're going to basically waive the rule that if you're not playing this season, you can still play in the tournament because you actually qualified in 2019. So I think they're trying to do the right thing. It's just going to be down to if the club can.
Yeah.
And that's the part you just don't know. And that's the case for all of these teams at the amateur level because for all of them, it's almost impossible for them to play in May because generally those teams rely on college players who you're not going to get until the beginning of June. And that's just the reality. That's just where it is. And you're not going to base the U.S. Open Cup on what amateur teams can do when amateur teams aren't going to be the ones that are competing to win this thing. Like it's good for them to be in it. You want them to be in it, but you can't structure the whole tournament based around their availability because that's not fair to the professional teams that really drive the conversation in this country. I know. I mean, it depends on what you want, and there are people who don't care about the professional teams. There are people who think the tournament should be absolutely based on the amateur teams. It's just not how it's going to go because the amateur teams aren't going to drive sponsorships for it. The amateur teams aren't going to bring in the money for it. The amateur teams aren't going to draw 40,000 people for a game in this tournament. They're just not. And you can't base it that way. So you set the parameters. You've done everything you can do. They're the team that won the draw. They're in it, and now they got to be able to do it. Ron Digital wants to cover Europa League for a split second, and we can because we are about to go because we have another show coming up at 6 o'clock. And I have 1,000,001 things to do before we get to that point. So, Europa League today. 4 games in the quarterfinals. Ajax hosting Roma. Arsenal hosting Slavia Prague. They are missing at least one folk that we know. Mm-hmm. Dinamo Zagreb hosting Villarreal. I don't think they've had any more arrests lately. And Granada hosting Manchester United. What are the Juicebox numbers?
Ajax at a -103, Roma's at a +270, your draws at a +284, Arsenal a -189, biggest favorite on the board, your draws a +325, Slavia Prague a +563.
Yeah, Arsenal wins that, for sure.
Dinamo Zagreb a +341 at home, and the draws a +252, Villarreal's a -111, Granada at home a +558. Yeah. Your draw is +300. Basically, Manchester United on the road a -175.
You've got some mismatches here. The best game is going to be Ajax and Roma. At least it should be on paper. I think Ajax gets it done at home. I think Arsenal gets it done at home. What was the Zagreb Villarreal number?
Dinamo Zagreb plus 341, Villarreal minus 111.
See, I think Villarreal gets it done, but that's not a teasing enough number for me to think about it. I think Manchester United gets it done. So I think the four teams that I expect to win are Ajax, Arsenal, Villarreal, and Manchester United. Villarreal maybe doesn't get the win, but manages the first leg, so they get the win in the second leg. Manchester United should be looking to win the first leg. Arsenal and Ajax being at home in the first leg. Arsenal needs to put up goals. They don't need to leave it to weirdness going to Prague for the second leg. And Ajax and Roma, that's going to be a dogfight in both games. But I think Ajax gets it done. Roma has been all over the place to the point that it looks like Roma is going to have a new manager next year.
Yep. Right there with you. Agree on all four.
Thoughts on how Aubameyang will perform today from Matty Eist? What you think?
Which one do you get?
Yeah, I just don't know.
And so I think that in this, he probably gets one, and it's probably one of the like if they score 2 or 3, it's probably the second or third goal on the board. So he can have it on the board. But I just don't know which one you're going to get on a daily basis.
I don't get it. Arsenal's a weird team. I think Mikel Arteta's really going to be a good manager. I think he's going to get them to a good place if they have the patience to stick with him. But it feels like he's got some players that aren't really on board. And I don't know how you fix that easily. This offseason could be fascinating for them. We'll get into those games. We'll talk about them tonight on the live show. We'll be at Dalton Brewing, 6 o'clock in Dalton, GA. We'll have some other things going on as well. We'll talk CONCACAF Champions League. We'll have all kinds of things to get into. If you can join us, please do. If you can't, you can watch on Twitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. You can join a drawing for a $50 gift card. Take a picture of what you're drinking on. If it's Dalton Brewing, you're going to get bonus points in the draw, and a winner will get a $50 gift card. There will be prizes given away at Dalton Brewing as well. Hope we can see some of you guys in person and virtually. But until then, mucho platio.
Mucho platio.